plan was to have the victim come to the scene and not identify me as a person that committed the crime. While the initial officer was what I thought handling the logistics for that, the pain from the handcuffs set in, and I requested that they get loosened. The officers assisted with doing so. 20 to 25 minutes from initial contact with the first officer, I was advised that the plan has changed and that they were taking me to the victim. Not knowing the victim at all, I was strongly against being taken to a victimized person, as I did not know the state that this person was in. The officer made it seem like I did not have a choice or option. I made it clear to him that I did not want to be transported in the vehicle to any location besides the spot that I was currently located at. Once those doors are closed on you, you never know when they're going to open again. At that point, I made a decision to not give up my in awkward and uncomfortable positions. I felt each finger of the officers press into my throat. The struggle lasted for a minute or two. I was angered, excited that they were attempting to transport me anywhere without having significant evidence to support that I, myself, committed a crime. I was told to calm down, but there's nothing calm about placing an innocent man in the back of a police vehicle. I was guilty before proven innocent. During the struggle, I sustained injuries to my back and neck. I made multiple officers aware of that. I had trouble fitting in the vehicle and was laying my back against the door. Multiple officers, knowing my placement in the vehicle, continued to open and shut the door vehicle, aggravating the injuries that I advised them. One even purposely slammed the door and later even threatened me, saying that he was a little bit bigger than me and that if he was there, that I wouldn't have been, he said that he was a little bit bigger than me and that I was lucky that he was not there. After losing track of time, the officer finally advised me that I was not going to be charged for the initial crime that they were investigating. He then stated that he was going to charge me for resisting arrest, but because there was no chargeable offense that he was moving forward with assault to a police officer, he was going to move forward with assault to a police officer. I was absolutely baffled when I heard these crimes that I was being charged for. After being fingerprinted at county, I was taken back to the detention center. Instead of being placed in a holding room or holding cell, I was trapped in the back of the initial officer's vehicle for what felt like 2 hours. The position I was in for a person with my size for a great period of time was excruciating. I asked for water from the initial officer, which I was denied, as he was just chugging a large container of water multiple times in front of me. While in the back of the vehicle, a person who introduced himself as the training officer of the two initial policemen said that to me, "Yup, that's Mr. Smith." I continually asked to make a call to a friend, family, employer, attorney, but I was denied multiple times. I was finally placed in a cell 6 or 7 hours later. All requests to speak with the attorney were denied. The cuffs remained on behind my back until 11 p.m. during this time. I was unable to finally get water. I was finally able to get water or even use the bathroom. I was unable to finally get water or even use the bathroom without assistance, as I was still handcuffed. My shorts were damaged as the strings had to be cut off for safety reasons. The temperature of the cells are unbearably cold for anyone not in pants and a long sleeve shirt. At 1 and 2 a.m. the following day, I was escorted to county. With the freezing temperatures, many of those that are in the custody fall asleep while waiting for everything. One person, after the officer aggressively continued to push and annoy this man, was body slammed face first into the concrete floor. There was a large puddle of blood once he was finally lifted from the ground as if he was just trash. At this moment, I recognized where I was at. I was stripped naked. I was exposed. And I felt violated, extremely violated. The bond hearing is done immediately without any selected counsel, or an opportunity to speak to counselors specifically for your case. When hearing that I would be responsible for a total of $20,000 for release of my bond, I thought I was done for. I had no knowledge about the process of getting out of jail, as I do not have experience with bonds. I was unable to remember a number to a friend or family to call. Access to your phones to get these numbers are not provided. The only numbers that we were able to get were what we felt like every jail bond located in San Antonio. I attempted to have a jail bond person to Google my friend, Stephen Whittaker, an attorney in Burnett, but failed in doing so. I was not provided any food while detained, arrested, or booked until 5 to 6 a.m. the next day. The next day, August 26th, I was put in the orange jumpsuit. I was told that I was finally going to be given access to my phone where I can actually get a number. However, when I came to the station to assist me with that process, I was told that my phone is not with them, and I would need to call another SAPD department, something that's not available from a jail phone. I tried to make conversation with other men that were incarcerated that were there. I told them my story. They were devastated, but gave me hope that once released, they would reach out to a family or friend of mine. I was later finally taken to my cell at about 5 p.m. on August 26th. Once those doors closed, I didn't think I would be getting out anytime soon. I was under the impression that no one knew of my location. I prepared myself to stay at the location in that jail cell until my court date, where I would be provided, finally be provided an attorney. That cell door did not open until the following day at approximately 9 a.m. However, you never know really what time it is, as there's not clocks available to you in the jail cell. You just have to basically take a guess on how the sun is shining through the window. It seemed like, to me, that this is done on purpose, maybe for a way for those in the system to forget or lose track of time. I experienced true darkness during this period of isolation. I thought about my job, what people would think of me, my record. Thousands of thoughts flew into my head, each gaining momentum of completely breaking me. I was sent out for medical treatment. I was sent with a man who seemed like he needed special attention, as he might have suffered from a form of mental illness. Maybe he needed a friend. I don't know, but it was obvious that he needed something. I was taken back to my room, but soon let out for my time. After about 2 days, I was finally provided the opportunity to take a shower. Once done with my shower, after getting some food with another man I met, I was back to my cell again. Within an hour, I was advised to pack my stuff as I was being released. When I heard the news, I was frozen for a good minute. I had no idea of what was going on outside my cell. However, while waiting to be released, officers try to take control of your release date. You are placed into another holding cell with others that are supposed to be set free. I believe I was in the cell for about 5 hours. During this time, every man in my cell was threatened to be held an additional 3 days for talking amongst each other. One man was told by a veteran cop that he would be the last to leave, pushing his release back an additional 2 shifts, approximately about half a day. Luckily, I was called to exit at about 6 p.m. When those doors opened, I was told by a woman watching the building doors that my friends were outside. When I saw some of my friends from out of town come through to scoop me up, it was one of the greatest feelings in the world. I saw my friends Stephen Whittaker, Robert Lagoria, and Miguel Noyola coming through, and that was awesome. Knowing that someone was still watching you, even though you gave up hope. What brought me even more excitement is that my experience with the police that day was captured by a witness, and that I was currently trending. Hearing senior officials discuss the unfair treatment that was captured that day brought me even more hope that I will have a fair opportunity to clear my name. I am thankful for a lot of people. I'm thankful for the team I have here. Adam, who was selected as my attorney. Originally, it was brought to my attention that I was selected with a dead attorney. I'm here with Tess House, who has brought a lot of attention to this matter. My good friend, Stephen Whittaker, as I mentioned earlier, an attorney that I've known for many years. I'm thankful to be considered again a free man. However, my name is not clean, and that has to be addressed. I was punished for invoking my rights, and that has to be addressed. I was treated unfairly, and that has to be addressed. I was physically, emotionally, and mentally harmed, and that has to be addressed. Multiple cops either not knowing or ignoring the rights of Texas residents. This has to be addressed. I will not stop until all these issues are taken care of and that they are addressed. Right.
Here. Go ahead, Martin. Here, you can be right by me.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Attorney Artessa House. I own and operate Test House Law here in San Antonio, Texas, and we have been retained as Mr. Omitu's civil rights attorney. This isn't the first time that we have had to address issues of injustice here in San Antonio, Texas. I am a native of San Antonio, Texas. I was born here. I am not a stranger to this community, and I can say that I am absolutely disgusted by how Mr. Omitu was treated on last week. Now, if you're looking out there in TV land, you can tell, and let me ask you, how many of you go jogging? You go outside of your house exercising without your ID. City of San Antonio, we didn't know that you have some ordinance, policies, procedures that we need to step outside of our residence to get some vitamin D in the midst of a pandemic with our ID on us. There's not many people that do that. In fact, it doesn't make sense because when you're exercising, the more that you have on, the more that you're weighed down, right? So the idea is that you would be light, that you could exercise, and this was something normal to Mr. Omitu. In fact, what you will find is that there are people in the community that live in his immediate community that have said, I've seen him running. So this wasn't, a unique occurrence and something that he had just did on this day. He runs regularly in his neighborhood. There's nothing criminal about being able to do that. You will see the police statement from the police chief, McManus, stating that, at that time when he was approached by law enforcement, and as they were investigating an alleged domestic violence incident, that he was under no legal authority to provide his name. If that's the case, then why detain him? If that's the case, why put him in handcuffs? He wasn't going anywhere. He wasn't running anywhere. Yet you will see another abuse of force by law enforcement. That's not right, and that's unjust. What we want to see is change in our community. Mr. Omitu's family immigrated from Nigeria, and the fact that he chose San Antonio to make it his home, it is burdensome upon us to make sure that he feels welcome in our community. What we don't want to do is to create an environment that is polarizing, where he is made to seem fit like he's not welcome. Now, Mr. McManus also stated, he was talking about how it was important to find out who Mr. Omitu was. Why? He wasn't a suspect. He hadn't committed any crime. He was a productive member of society, minding his own business. I don't believe that that burden shifts upon the innocent. That burden shifts upon their police officers to do what they should have been trained to do, and that was to execute a thorough investigation. In fact, I'm sure you all have had time to look at the dash cam footage that was released by the San Antonio Police Department. The description from the actual victim herself doesn't match Mr. Omitu. Guys, take a look at him. Take all the pictures you want to. There's nothing little or scruffy about this beard, right? So unless law enforcement is blind, or they just wanted that day to take in someone, they wanted to target him because they said, how dare you know what your constitutional rights are? How dare you assert them to the San Antonio Police Department? Don't you see this badge? When you see this badge, you need to do whatever it is that we tell you to do. But that's not law, right? Those are not the rules, and they don't just get to carte blanche make any type of policies that they want to. In fact, it is an abuse of taxpayer money. Then, when Mr. Omitu was taken into custody, the amount of cop cars, right, that arrived shortly thereafter, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, kept rolling in, as if we don't have real crime going on in San Antonio, all chasing a man that was trying to jog and get some exercise. In fact, it's our own government saying, step out, get some vitamin D. But you can't even do that apparently in the city of San Antonio, and that's not right. And so what we are asking for, it's beyond justice, because we've been asking for that for several years, and that hasn't changed. What we need to do is there needs to be a transformation in the hiring process of San Antonio Police Department. There needs to be an increase of training and different types of training. San Antonio Police Department's employees need implicit and explicit bias training, because clearly on that day they were biased against Mr. Omitu. And I mean, I don't know, did they even get the actual suspect? Who knows? Apparently there was a run-in with him at the actual complex. And so we look forward to further details. What I'm going to ask you to do as journalists is to really tap into your investigative journalism techniques and tools, and really put pressure on the San Antonio Police Department to ask, what did you do? What did you do in your investigatory skills and measures to find out exactly what this suspect looked like before you approached this man who clearly did not fit the description of what the victim described in the initial encounter? He doesn't fit the description. So I would challenge you to challenge their narrative. Being a black man doesn't fit the description alone. She was very specific what his beard looked like, and they decided to disregard that and do their own thing. But you don't get to do that. You don't get to disregard the facts and evidence and do your own thing, especially when it costs liberty rights of our citizens. So we're concerned, and we want these issues addressed. I'm going to bring up now Adam Cobbs, who is the criminal defense attorney for Mr. Omitu, to give some words.
And I'm sorry, could you state and spell your name as well?
Sure.
And then you as well.
Sure. Artessa, A-R-T-E-S-S-I-A, last name House, as in a house.
Thank you.
All right, good morning, everybody. My name is Adam Cobbs, A-D-A-M. Last name is K-O, B as in boy, S as in Sam. I was appointed to represent Mr. Omitu late Thursday at 4:16 p.m. I received notice that I was going to have the honor of representing Mr. Omitu. I was not aware that he had already spent 2 days in jail, having been appointed an attorney that passed away many years ago. That started off the chain of events that should never occur again. There's no reason why this young man, Mr. Omitu, who's employed at USAA, should have spent 2 days in custody based on some error, some mistake. Now, let's go to the offense itself. When Mr. McManus comes out and says it's appropriate what his officers did, that seems to be that headline, appropriate. Not only does everybody, I think, disagree with that, the district attorney disagreed with it, I disagreed with it, Mr. Omitu disagreed with it, but when he comes out and says his officers acted appropriate, that's a problem. That not only endorses this type of behavior, it blesses this type of behavior, and change needs to start from the top. If you make a mistake, you do something wrong, you own up to it, you admit it, you apologize. There needs to be retraining, absolutely. It's been far too long that when citizens of the United States invoke their constitutional rights, whether it's the right to remain silent, not say a word, all of a sudden that seems to be some presumption of guilt, and that's shameful. Black lives matter. Mr. Omitu's life matters. I'm looking forward to the day that Tess is able to get some resolution that's fair for the community, fair for Mr. Omitu. Retraining absolutely needs to be done. And so I did show appreciation to our District Attorney Joe Gonzalez. He and his staff spent many hours over the weekend. We spent hours over the weekend reviewing hours of tape, and absolutely he did the right thing. However, I also said in my release statement, the misconduct of SAPD should not be supported, it should not continue, and it needs absolutely to be addressed. And I'm going to ask Chief McManus to retract this statement that says this was appropriate. His officers acted appropriate. They absolutely did not. Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives Matter!
Matthias. Now we know that these police officers were looking for a suspect. If the approach had been different, would you have acted in a different way?
You know, at this point in time, let's talk about the law, right? Because Chief McManus by himself made his own admission and said he was under no legal authority to provide his name. So why? No, he doesn't get the burden, and that's not fair. Why put the burden on an innocent person? If you know what the law is, and the police chief says you're under no legal authority at that point to give your name, then why do so? He wasn't going anywhere. He was standing right there answering their questions. So you don't get to push the burden on the actual citizen. That burden is on the police department. And they're not going to shift the narrative.
Mr. Omitu, what should happen with these police officers?
Do you want to answer that?
I believe that they need additional training. So that definitely needs to be addressed immediately. They obviously made a mistake, a huge mistake, and that has to be addressed some way or another.
How did you know to stand there? State your name and spell it. We just want to make sure that we get it correct on there.
Yes, sir. My name is spelled M as in Mike, A, T as in Tango, H-I, A as in Alpha, S as in Sierra. Last name Ometu, O-M as in Mike, E as in Echo, T as in Tango, U as in uniform. I go by Marty.
And given the state that we're currently living in, everything that's going on, especially with police and African-American men, when all of this was going on, you're jogging, you get stopped, you see officers, unit after unit, patrol unit after unit come up. What were you thinking? What was going through your mind? I mean, how did you feel in that moment with everything going on?
I felt targeted. I felt like I became the victim, where there's another woman who was out there seeking justice, and it took too long for her to seek the justice that she deserved and needed. Instead, they had to continue to hold an innocent man after knowing that I did not fit the description that woman provided to them.
And you had any interaction? What was the impact of spending 2 days in jail had on you? Could you speak to that?
Excuse me. The impact was significant. You missed out on a lot of things. A lot of things. You're put in a state that you have to adjust how you are. You can't go where you want to go. You lose freedom, and that's the biggest thing. I felt like I was trapped, held against my will, and there was no ending to what I felt like I was going through.
Had you had any interaction with police in your life up until last Tuesday?
You know, I believe that this is the most significant one, and this is the one that matters. You know, we see police officers all the time, so let's be real. We've all had interaction with police officers. We count on them to defend our community. You know, we've all had interactions. What he wasn't expecting is to have something so negative. We're not anti-police, but we are anti not doing your job. We are anti being disruptive to our liberty rights.
Can he speak to how he knew so well the rights of detainment versus arrest and just stand his ground essentially for several minutes even as SAPD officers told him he had to give his name, which his legal right was, and he didn't.
Right, but he was under the authority that at that moment he knew he did nothing wrong. And in fact, he told them he didn't do anything wrong. And I find it funny that Chief McManus said, well, if he only gave his name, this could have been over in 2 minutes. Let's be real. What officer do you know has an interaction with a suspect that they believe has done something wrong? That suspect provides their name without an ID and that they just take their word for it? You know, it wouldn't have been over in 2 minutes. Let me tell you what would have happened. He didn't have his ID. He would have provided his name. The police still would have detained him to make sure he was who he was. And he wasn't expected to have his ID at that point. So push that narrative away that Chief McManus is trying to sell us, because we're not buying it.
Period. Will you be taking any legal action?
You were talking about a civil rights lawsuit yesterday. What's the status of that, and when do you all plan to file?
We will exercise, we are entertaining all that is available to us, and we will release that information to you as soon as that is done.
If I ask, how do you feel about the possibility of an internal affairs investigation? Do you feel like if you were to file a complaint, or if the witnesses were to file a complaint, that it was conducted properly?
You know,
Is
at
that
this
something
point,
you're considering?
we will say at this point, anything that is available to us, we will look at all of those options.
But as she pointed out yesterday, aren't those waters muddy because the chief has already come out and said that his officers acted appropriately? How are people beneath the chief supposed to say otherwise if the chief has already spoken and said that this incident played out correctly?
Let me give you a snap of history. You will recall a couple of years ago when there was the shooting of Antoine Scott. Do you recall him? And police chief took the stand and spoke and said that no officer in his position should have taken that shot. And at that point, it was under the authority of the San Antonio Police Union that they provided the police chief a vote of no confidence. So the question is whether or not, and then what happened? Then he started to backtrack, right? You know, so at that point, we rely on the leader to do what's right, even though it may not be popular with his police officers that he is in charge of serving over, or the San Antonio Police Union, who they are not indebted to the public, they are indebted to themselves, right? And remember, when we talk about police officers, they serve at the pleasure of the public. It is not the other way around.
And Mr. I want to ask you this. Given how everything unfolded, is there anything that you would have done differently with the whole situation of anything that you did in that situation?
I feel that I acted appropriately. I mean, being a black male, whenever you're approached by a police officer, your caution, your awareness is picked up. So I felt like I didn't do anything wrong, and I don't feel like that. I mean, yeah, I was aggravated, but other than that, I feel like I did everything that I have the rights to do.
And I will say, blackmail aside, this is what I will say. Being a blackmail,
With everything that is going on, George Floyd, Breonna, at some point, those images came to your mind?
let me ask you something. Why is it that when we talk about a black male, race is the issue? Why can't he just be a citizen, right? It's always about race. So let's take race out of this. How many people in his circumstances would have acted the same way? Because I'm sure that there are people that have done more and less was imposed upon them. So this has, take race out of it. You know, just him being a male, a citizen, a law-abiding citizen, a productive member of society that works for one of the most reputable companies in this city that holds this city down. Why was he treated that way?
Thank you.
So what was the impact from your family? I know in a lot of these cases it's not just you affected. I mean, you have family members who are obviously concerned for you as well. I mean, what was the conversations with them like in the midst of all of this going on?
To be honest, I couldn't tell you what's going on. During the time I was incarcerated, I had no communication with anyone. I wasn't able to speak to anyone in my family until the second that I saw my friends outside. Stephen Whittakin was able to get in contact with the family representative, or my family, my father, immediately after I got out, and they were ecstatic once they noticed that I was again released and a free man.
At any point did you fear for your own life?
I be honest, yes. When I was in that vehicle, I didn't know what was going to happen to me. I didn't know that there was body cams would be available to capture what was captured that day. A lot of times, those cams just disappear or not effective. So I was worried that I was going to be another victim.
Do you feel like things would have been different if the attorney that was outside witnessing your arrest had not reported it?
I do, and I'm very gracious for the witnesses that saw the unjustly arrest that day.
Right, and so the attorney that you are referring to is Attorney Victor Moss. This incident actually happened to take place outside of the office of a law firm. So we are so grateful that he was there. And if you were to look at, there was footage from that particular incident released where the officers then tried to come in and intimidate those witnesses, asking for information, right? Asking for any type of footage that they should have already had in their possession. And so there was an injustice right then and there as well.
Can you talk to why he was not given a PR bond? That's a common bond given to folks that have no previous criminal record. We see people all the time released on PR bonds that are even charged with assault on a peace officer.
Dylan, I'm not sure why he was not given a PR bond is the simple answer. I can tell you that Joe Gonzalez was getting ready to get on the phone when this came to light late Thursday and was getting ready to request a PR bond for Mr. Omitu. It should have, but again, a lot of mistakes were made. Nobody knew that he was appointed a deceased attorney until Tess House, I believe, brought that to the attention of the authorities. No? Oh, is it a B? It's probably the sweat on my solar panel here, so don't record that.
Mr. Ometu, my last question.
Yeah.
Mr. Ometu, my last question. After the body cam footage has been released, a lot of people are still in defense of those officers who responded to this incident. For those people who are still in support of those officers saying and feel that those officers acted appropriately, what's your message to them?
Know your rights. Simple as that.
And also imagine that he's your brother, your father. You know, would you want them treated that way? When we talk about working out, it's already hard for people, right? And then our trainers say, or exercise gurus say, 80% is showing up. So he decided to show up that day. He just needed law enforcement to show up for him, but that's what we would want for any of our family members.
Mr. Collins, do you have any documentation that in fact he was appointed a dev lawyer? It was at one point reflected in the court records online, and the Express News reported it, and now the county is claiming that that's not accurate.
You know, you can go online to the Bexar County District Clerk's website, which I believe is what you're referring to, Emily. And I did the same thing after I had heard that, and I did not see any record. So when a lawyer is appointed in Bexar County to represent an individual, we receive an email notification, and that goes into the Bexar County District Clerk's website. If you really want to know who was appointed or try and track down those records, I would hope somewhere it exists over at the magistrate's office, because the magistrate court, the judge, would have been the one that would have appointed him, and then it's just computer generated. Somewhere those records will exist.
And Mr. Mitchell, I know I said I have one more, I promise. When you chose to leave the house that day to go jog, it may be a little unconventional question. What did you originally plan on doing that day? What did you have planned that day when you left the house to go jog, and unfortunately you didn't make it back?
Yeah. So that day, I got out. I had work 8:30 to 6 p.m. Right before my run, I put out some beans that were there on the counter when I came back. Destroyed my home. But yeah, I didn't really have much other than running, more work, eat, work out, and continue on to the weekend. That's every American does.
And I want to come back to, if I could follow up with the gentleman's question about what's been going on in our nation, because I don't want to overlook this. The fact that this issue, the treatment of black men specifically in our nation has been heightened and a topic of concern, obviously is a concern that we have in the city of San Antonio. I remember years back under another mayor that said that San Antonio is not Ferguson, Missouri. Well, here's the problem. It's worse because we're a city of immigrants. And you will find that generally immigrants don't talk, right? Because there's risk. There are consequences to you speaking out. So you would think, knowing the heightened social times that we live in, that these officers will rise to the occasion and act better, because that's what we expect. But that's a result of them not having the type of training when it comes to bias that they just are not receiving.
And my question, and I don't know, I mean, maybe it should have been done different. My question is, because everything that is going on, and he already said that he feared for his life. Well, the images of what happened in Ferguson, that other things that are happening, the guy that got shot 7 times already, well, it's not only in your mind, it's in my mind too. So that's what I was, asking him, all of a sudden, you are already on kind of a hot situation, well, those images, come to your mind. I mean.
Sure, and that's fair. And and the fact is that you can be unarmed and you can be complying and still not live being taken under custody of officers. And that's scary.
Do you have a message for the officers that you interacted with?
I really don't. I don't have a statement for them directly at this time. Right now, I'm just so glad to be free. They try to take that away from me with some, I feel like, bogus charges. I felt like I was being punished because I wasn't giving them what they want. And multiple times during that day, I was advised that I'm making it harder for myself. All I was doing was just protecting my rights that the state of Texas provided me.
At any point would you like to speak with them or Chief McManus?
Thank you so much. That'll be the questions for today. Thank you.
No peace! No racist! Police! Show me what democracy looks like! This is what democracy looks like! Show me what democracy looks like! This is what democracy looks like! Hands up! Don't shoot! Hands up! Don't shoot! Hands up! Don't shoot! Black Lives Matter! Black Lives Matter! My skin is not a weapon! 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 No justice! No peace! No racist! Police! No justice! No peace! No racist! Police!
Thank you all for watching. Have a great Cool, thank you. Keep it to the